Humanists Take on the World, Episode 2. Where do we go from here? With Nadya Dutchin. Welcome to another episode of Humanists Take on the World. I'm your host, Dustin. And there really isn't anything to go into this time. Pretty other than, the interview that we've got. So that's going to be, it was a really good one. I know I really, really enjoyed it. And Nadya seemed to as well. Next time, which is going to be again in 2 weeks. Finally starting to get into the schedule now, since at the switch over, I didn't leave myself enough time. So it'll be 2 weeks for the next episode. And we've got another interview scheduled for that one. Life has been really hectic recently with work stuff and some family health issues. It's been a bit tough, and it's definitely nice having some interviews to help fill in with that. The big work project will be done next weekend. Well, I guess now it'd be this coming weekend. So that next episode will help take care of that just fine. So without further ado, let's get into the interview. We are now joined by Nadya Dutchin, the Executive Director of the American Humanist Association, who has a lot of experience with working in nonprofits, including the Power Shift Network and Be the Match Registry, and is of Afro-Indian Guyanese heritage. Nadya, welcome to Humanists Take on the World.
Thank you so much, Dustin. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me here.
Okay, so I got to start off. Afro-Indian Guyanese heritage.
Yes. So for folks that don't know, Guyana is a country. British Guyana, formerly British Guyana, is a country that has 6 different races of people. And my family comes from 2 prominently, one being India. I have my great-great-grandfather, who is my forebear and carried my name, my last name, came from India as an indentured servant. The other half of my family is Black, some coming from the Cape Verde area and others coming from Ghana.
Okay.
Our culture is kind of a mashup of Chinese, Indian, African, Portuguese, indigenous, which Arawak Indians, Arawak Native indigenous people, and then white people.
And
so
Guyana, if I remember correctly, has the highest percentage of the population that is Hindu in the Western Hemisphere.
Probably so, actually. There are a lot of people who are Hindu, and so I do have quite a few family members who are Hindu. All right, which is true.
That is that's pretty fascinating.
It really is. It's a beautiful country, and we're the only English-speaking country in South America. We are not necessarily South American, though. We're very Caribbean. Our affect and accent and traditions are that of the West Indies. So we are probably more closely aligned to Trinidad and Tobago, which is our closest Caribbean neighbor. So our culture is very much like theirs.
I had a friend who was from Trinidad back in school. They were
probably lovely.
He was an awesome person. Yeah.
Sure. They're really, really lovely people. They're generally really, really nice. And besides Guyanese cooking, my second favorite is Trinidadian cooking. So they're good cooks too. Which
Very
is
nice. All right. So you've been running the American Humanist Association for how many months now?
Since December of last year. So almost 3.
Okay. So this is still relatively fresh.
It is very.
How are you settling in?
I'm finally settling in. I think the first month or so was a lot of information, a lot of historical information coming in my direction, getting to know my staff. It's always such a pleasure to get to know your colleagues and understand their needs, what's exciting to them, what's not terribly exciting, and how we can change our work and how we can change the movement. So it's been very busy. I've been meeting with a lot of people. I've been talking with donors and members and chapter leaders, partners and affiliates, So I've been learning a lot, and I'm still learning and will continue to learn. It's, clearly leadership is an iterative process, so I'll just continue to be building as I go along. But it's been really, really interesting, and I honestly have lost sleep because I couldn't wait to wake up and start working.
Oh, that's awesome.
Because we have so many, I know, isn't that weird? But there's so much opportunity for us to do really great things right now. That it's exciting. It's exciting when you get to be a change maker and do it with really smart, kind people with high emotional intelligence like we have in AHA staff and within the humanist movement. So it's just really exciting. I feel like I'm in the right place and, in the right purpose for now. And I'm really excited about it.
All right. And what's the vision right now for where AHA should be headed?
The vision that I was brought in to execute is really to shift the demographic of our movement, to become a place where young, more diverse populations can find a movement home and a community in the humanist movement. On the surface, it looks like, hey, bring in the brown person to diversify the movement. But it's more than that. It's really like help the movement get a shot in the arm and structurally change the way that it operates, and the way that we move together as a movement so that we can create a place that is truly welcoming for young people who, while they may not, 40% or so, they say, are considered nuns, young people, not religiously affiliated. But the truth of the matter is that their religion is service to people and social justice. So if we're not addressing social justice through the vehicle of service, then we as humanists who believe in those two things are failing miserably at that. So the point of my being in here is to help build movements and coalitions and community build so that we can, make the place nice and vibrant and warm and welcoming for these young people to join our ranks and be the humanist movement of the future. So that's what's in store, is really like getting ourselves in order, first as an internal AHA staff culture, then rippling that out to the membership and the member of chapters, the chapters and our affiliates, then our larger members, and then the general public. So, it's going to take a little while before the new brand of AHA and the new brand of humanism is ready for consumption, but we're doing it incrementally to ensure that we are, affecting systemic, like long-lasting systemic change, to create a more beautiful and vibrant movement for young folks in particular.
So from what I've seen over the years, the old guard approach has basically been try to keep the wall of separation of church and state from crumbling.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that's still part of the plan since it is actively crumbling. But it's nice to hear there's the interest in doing more.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
What would you say are some of the biggest social justice issues that humanists should be heavily involved in?
Oh my, there's so many. Honestly,
there's a lot.
There really are. I mean, right now, actively, we're seeing abortion rights, on the chopping block, and that is there's so much undergirding the idea of women being able to make medical decisions for their bodies with their physicians without having the government interfering in that process. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the biggest issue. It's to me, clearly, people can argue about when life begins and when it doesn't, but, we are not property. Women are not property. And feminine bodies and people assigned female at birth, our bodies are not property. It is up to us to make decisions, the best decisions for ourselves with medical professionals without any interference. So that is the current issue that I think that we need to address, just simply because it's sitting in the, on the desk of the Supreme Court at this very moment. I think we should be, thinking a lot about violence and violence takes many different forms, and clearly gun violence is an issue. But there's systemic violence happening. Particularly, we've seen, in the last year or so, the highly televised taking and culling of Black lives. Hence the Black Lives Matter movement, which is still necessary and will continue to be necessary. We see it bleeding over into harm being caused to our Asian brothers and sisters because of COVID. It's almost, I don't even know how to explain it. It's almost like people are just losing their ever-loving minds. But what's been happening, particularly with Black folks, has been happening for centuries. Not even decades, like centuries. And so I think the idea, and people are reticent to talk about it, but I think the idea of reparations is that issue is sorely needed in this moment. We really need to be talking about actually addressing the issue of slavery honestly in this country and compensating Black Americans. And that does not include my family. England owes us. But people here, the American government owes them. And we need to be talking about, it doesn't necessarily need to be it certainly would be worth millions, but we don't need to be talking about just cutting a check, but in what ways there should be a check, I should say. There should be a check at least, but there should be more. How is the U.S. government correcting and giving recompense to people who have been harmed by slavery, generations who've been harmed, have never been able to incur and grow generational wealth,
right?
Was ripped away from people who were forcibly brought here. I think that is a huge issue. I also think that, we cannot wait on climate. And while that seems to be,
before we get to climate,
sure, absolutely.
With the race issues, I'm white. Most of my listeners are white. The police killing of Black people, that's always been going on, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the only thing that's changed is that white people are noticing.
Yeah, thank goodness for camera phones. Thank goodness for our iPhones and our Androids, yes.
So that's what's changed is now everybody knows it's happening, not just that it's disenfranchised people being able to get the voice to make it clear that they're being murdered. That is an amazing thing that technology has brought.
Correct.
And on the topic of reparations, it's an interesting one. I know I've thought about when you look at the numbers, descendants of slaves in America, that intergenerational poverty, it does not seem to be stopping.
Right.
Police not killing Black men, crazy incarceration rates, those going down too, would also definitely help. But sometimes money does make a difference.
Well, there's a couple of things. What we all know, I think common sense. John Nash, the mathematician, economist, if we've all seen A Beautiful Mind, he says it at the end. It's a good reference. What's best for the individual is what's best for everyone. If people are safe, if they are resourced, if they are supported, if they are in a safe, warm home, if they have enough food to eat, if they're able to do fun things and go on vacations like everyone else, if they're able to easily put clothes on the backs of their family, afford their medications, have good access to health care and education, nobody will be looking in your window at what you have on your table because they'll have their own. And we have denied, this country has denied Black people that for so long, and people want to still continue to argue with the lived experience of Black people in this country when they say, my neighborhood is redlined. I live in East Baltimore. I live in a redline neighborhood, and they got the surprise of their life when they gentrified the neighborhood I'm in, and guess who moved in? Black people. Black professionals. We were like, surprise. Hello. Because we're not going to let you take over the neighborhood. That's the one thing I love about Baltimore. It's like people here fight for their culture, fight for the culture of Baltimore itself. But having said all of that, it still happens. I pay more in car insurance than other people do in, just a few miles outside of the city. It costs, the taxes here are more. They are literally pushing people out of the city so that they can bring it to its lowest common denominator and buy up all of the property and then redo it all. And there will be no Black people here. They're doing it on purpose, and they've been doing this everywhere. Look at Flint, the water infrastructure. Look at Newark, same thing. Newark, New Jersey, same thing. Water infrastructure. If you can poison the people, guess what? They're not going to live there anymore. And guess all the vultures get to come in. This is a systemic issue, and that's when I'm saying violence. Violence is not necessarily like me punching you in the nose, but there are ways that you can inflict violence upon people by making their lives so untenuous, so uncomfortable, that they don't want to participate in it anymore. And then but the problem is that when you get that level of hopelessness, that's when you see the actual physical violence manifesting in the world. Then that's when you start seeing the shootings and the muggings and the killings, all the things that are happening, that make people afraid. The cause of violence is poverty. A physical violence is poverty. And they've kept their foot just because we've had, a biracial president, we've, who had a beautiful Black wife, two beautiful Black daughters, does not mean that we are, that we are living in an equal footing. We have first every day. And here we are in the year of Audre Lorde in 2022. We still have first. We're still seeing first. And there are very few white people that can, that are the first person to do a thing, unless it has to do with technology. That's a whole different animal because that's evolving daily, you know. But on the whole, we are still having our first. We just had our first Black speed skater, Aaron, win the gold. We're still, and it's exhausting celebrating these firsts. We're happy to have them, but can we please get over the first and make this normal? There's a lot, and it's exhausting. Black people are tired. We're tired of being gaslit, and we're telling you that it's because of racism, that it's because of systemic, oppression, that we are not as far as we possibly could be as an entire community. And being told, oh, no, it's not that, it's something else. And now that, again, you've got the camera phones, you should, maybe you just didn't hear the policeman's direction. Philando Castile is a great example. A young man, said, disclose, I am a legal gun owner. My gun is here. Did everything he was supposed to do. Hands were seen. And he still was killed in front of his girlfriend and their, their daughter. We can do no right. Well, it's as if we're supposed to wear our resumes on our sleeve, oh, he was a college graduate, and oh, he was a good person. He worked in the cafeteria, and everyone loved him. We are not treated equally. We're just not treated equally, and the expectation is that we have to tap dance and do cartwheels to be treated equally is just tiring. And that's exactly, why reparations needs to happen is that we need to have some of this burden lifted from us so that we can at least be in a place of stasis, Right.
And instead we've got a world with a housing crisis where middle-class white people are competing with people in poverty for housing. And so then where do the people, the poverty people go? Where do the poorest go?
Right. Well, that's the thing, though. With systemic issues, though, it like Malcolm said, it comes home to roost. Like crack in the 80s. It was not a problem when it was Black people and brown people hooked on crack. But now that it's heroin, oh, my goodness, it's a community health crisis. Of course it is. No one is saying it's not. But it was a community health crisis in the 80s, too. So, when it comes home to roost, then it's a problem. And now it is a problem because we've got wonderful, smart, young, passionate white kids coming out of college, burdened by student loan debt, living in communal homes. I feel so bad for some of these young folks. They'll never know the joy of living by themselves. That's a beautiful thing, being able to have your own apartment and walking around in your underwear. They'll never know the joy of that because they can't afford to even live by themselves, let alone save to purchase a home. The cost of property is just I can't even say it's tripled. It's more than that. It's ridiculous, but you're right. Everyone is competing for substandard living at this point. I mean, and I love the fact that like now the kids are like, I'm quitting. No 2-week notice. No, nothing. They're just like, screw you, because we don't have to keep putting up with this. And it's difficult hearing older people. Well, I had to do so and so, and I had to. And why are you complaining? Well, you should have been complaining too. Like, don't be mad at the young folks because they're sick of it. They can't live. They can't live well. But now, unfortunately. Now you know how Black folks have been living. Now you know how working class people have been living. Now you know how migrant workers have been living. Welcome to the party. Like, misery loves company, and now we have plenty of it. And I think people are just exhausted from it, all of us.
Oh, middle-class white people were lied to that they're part of the capitalist class. No.
You're absolutely right. If you work for a tech, you are not anything but a part of the slave class.
Yeah.
Even if you're a physician, you are part of the slave class.
It was a fun one for me to figure out recently on the term capitalist is like, okay, yeah, I am definitely not a capitalist. I do not own capital.
Right.
Like, by definition, I'm not.
Right. Exactly. And it's a failed experiment. It's like we've got to, and this is part of some of what we need to be talking about in the humanist community. It's like, I'm so glad I'm doing this with you and we're talking about it, but like, why are we not talking about new economic models? Because capitalism in its current form does not work. Even, if we were to go back to just bartering and trading, there's a thread of capitalism certainly in it. But there's always going to be a thread of capitalism because we need things and we have things to give. China
has a thread of capitalism.
Right. It's just failed and broken here, particularly because it's unregulated, it's unfettered, it's greed. We're literally all beholden to the oligarch class. And they're just toying with the strings and doing all the things. I mean, so few people have generational wealth. I mean, in any meaningful way, everyone works. Everyone has to work to pay their loans, to pay their bills, their rent, their mortgage, to eat their food. And we want to begrudge people avocado toast and coffee. Like,
yeah.
I saw someone say that the other day. Oh, I canceled my Netflix subscription. I'm so excited that I'm going to be a homeowner next week. Like, as if that $16.99 cancellation is going to, hoist you into the homeowner sphere. It's just there's nothing you can do unless you live in a place like Baltimore where they're giving, they have grants and there are places that like, please buy a house. Here's some money. Very few cities do things like that. To encourage home ownership. But if we didn't have to worry about some of the basics in this country, like how we take care of our youngest and our oldest, how we get people educated, maybe for free. Whew, that would be nice. And we
wait. Are you suggesting that we shouldn't have to pay student loans until retirement?
Correct. I believe that we should not, number one, have student loans. We also should not be paying for public college, community college, public college. I get there's private universities, but I mean, when my parents went to college, when they went to college, you could work like at a diner over the summer and pay for Yale with summer money.
Yeah.
You can't afford Yale on a good day on a salary, let alone, summer waitressing job or, working in a garage, changing tires or something. You can't work those kinds of jobs and expect that you're going to be able to pay for a year of university. But no, we should not be asking people to pay. We should not be asking people to pay to make our country better. That kind of innovation, if people did not have to worry about health care, Medicare for all, scary, scary. But if people had health care and there was a universal basic income where you could actually live, the kind of innovation we would see in this country would be staggering. And I mean in a good way. I think people would create and innovate in ways that we have not seen since the early 1900s or since the Renaissance. If people could create art and music and be able to eat, They could think about new systems and new ways to do things, new technologies. They can create new ways to brush your teeth. I don't know. Interesting things, but we don't. We're so busy being worker bees and drones that we're too tired to think about innovation and be creative. It takes spaciousness to do that, and we have none. We're just exhausted all the time. It's not worth it. And that's what we're seeing from the littles here. I call them the littles. I'm older. But I see them like, screw your 2 weeks, and here I'm done. I'm not coming into work. Bye. And that's it. And it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Where I'm at in Boise, all the employers here are completely freaking out about, and this is true everywhere, but right. Here especially, they're freaking out about, they actually have to try to get employees.
Mm-hmm.
Like until, the pandemic started, it was still here that there were 4 people looking for jobs for every job opening.
Mm-hmm.
Or 4 people unemployed for every job opening. And the employers were competing for who could get away with the least.
Right.
And that's not the case anymore.
No, and some folks are still trying it. I mean, like, let's be real. Like, I applaud their effort. Like, they're still trying it, but nobody has to work for you. Until the right thing comes along, until a place where you can be appreciated and treated well and paid, compensated properly, and have good working conditions and good benefits, nobody's going to come work for you. And honestly, like walking into the AHA, that was literally one of the first things that I did. I just finished the first swath of all of those changes, bringing in benefits, better benefits for the staff, ensuring that, folks know what's what, and raising salaries. I just did that last week. And I have gotten the most glorious feedback. Like, I literally had an exhaust because it was a lot of talking one-on-one. It was great, but I was exhausted, but it was the best kind of exhaustion. I was like, whew, I left it all on the carpet. I did it all. But it was great. And my deepest hope is that our staff feels appreciated, and that they feel like I care about them and I care about their families enough to give, to seek out benefits that are going to help enhance their life and give them some kind of a safety net if something happens to them or their loved ones, so that we can keep, we can feel at ease and we can now focus on the work. And that's what happens is when you have employees who are cared for and they can take, my staff have 2 hours a week, every week, that they can just do whatever they want. Where they can take a nap, they can go make cookies, they can go to the doctor, they can spend time with their kids, they can cuddle with their pet, whatever. No questions asked, because taking care of themselves is a part of productivity to me. You cannot show up for work if you are not fully you and fully cared for. So please take care of yourself. Like, take care of yourself. It's as simple as that. Just some basic, treat people like humans, like people that you love and care for. And you will get the best employees. You will get good retention. They'll work a little bit harder just because they feel good, not because, and I didn't do that for loyalty and to drive production. I did it because I know that that's what they deserve. And, it's going to show up in the work, because in the kind of work we have to do in the humanist movement at this moment, it's going to be a lot of work, Dustin. It's a lot of work. And we've got to shore ourselves up. We've got to beef up a little bit, So this is us beefing up a little bit. And no employer should be treating their employees. If people think that $15 an hour is a living wage, they are absolutely nuts. A living wage right now looks like at about $24, $25 an hour. If you are not paying your staff at least that, you're not doing the right thing. And your DEI statement means nothing. Yeah. Because everyone has one these days, It means nothing if you're not paying your people well. You don't know how they're living. Yeah. It's terrible.
Yeah. I've had some major pay adjustments recently in the last couple of years. And, I know a lot of people are getting that. It is amazing how much that means.
Right.
For the most part, your basic costs are all the same. So that extra $200 in your paycheck, that means you don't like you don't have to struggle as much.
Right.
That means you can actually be comfortable. It's
Right.
really nice.
Well, also, like, wages have not kept up with inflation. I mean, like, the cost of chicken wings alone, like, let's just talk about that. Has like tripled. You know, like, what are we to do for leisure if we're not, you know, frying up a bucket of wings and, you know, having a time with our friends?
Yeah.
But, like, our wages have not kept up with inflation. I mean, the cost of living raise that we had to give staff before we layered on additional raises was almost 6% in one year, just from last year to this year, is 6%. How do people keep up with that? I mean, you know, you say that you do have fixed expenses, certainly, but everything else is going up. Your lights are going. Right. Most people I know, their electric bill or their gas bill has gone up double. It's doubled in the last 3 months.
Oh wow!
Yeah, at least here in Baltimore, it's been really bad.
Oh, here are they're lowering power bills.
Oh, what are y'all doing?
Solar.
I think it's because it's cold and people here use gas.
The gas bill sucks, but the electric bill, yeah, they've been actually reducing the electric bill out here because they keep putting in solar installations and windmills.
Oh, well.
They're super cheap.
Imagine that. Renewable energy working. Wow.
This is Idaho. There's very little flat ground, and where there is, it's always sunny and always windy. So where there's elevation differences, you put dams and do hydroelectric, and where there isn't, you put windmills and solar, and you do all of that, and yeah, it just gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper.
They better be careful in case people take the hint that sustainability and renewable energy is really what will save people money, and it will save the planet at the same time. Imagine that renewables work. They've been saying this forever. Yeah. You know, and this whole the fact that Build Back Better is stuck in the quagmire that is the Congress. Oh gosh, the kind of jobs that will be created from sustainable infrastructure alone.
Oh yeah.
Our roads and bridges are falling, literally falling. Crumbling as we speak. Our water infrastructure is horrible. Our transportation infrastructure is horrible. I'm almost afraid to take the train. And we don't even have high speed. We're not even in this century. We're not even in this century transportation wise in this country. Our public infrastructure stinks. It's horrible.
Well, and out west, the hydroelectric is one of the main sources of renewable energy. And one of the main sources of energy, and also one of the main sources of irrigation for a lot of our food. Those dams are all about to crumble.
They're dry, I might add.
And dry.
They are dry. I think I saw on 60 Minutes, it was 25 feet below the minimum level that they normally see, the normal minimums.
Yeah.
25 feet below. And I was like, that. We haven't seen that since they were dinosaurs.
Last summer, just with the Boise River, which is a relatively small river, there's 3 dams. And the highest up dam, they drained first. And that was empty by, I think, the start of July. By the start of August, the second dam was empty. By the time it started raining again, by the time we got some precipitation again, finally, the last dam closest to Boise was, I think, down to half of capacity. Which means, if you're driving out of town, you didn't see how low it was. But that system was down to a quarter of its capacity.
That's terrible. And that's terrifying. People should be more afraid than they are. And not that I'm trying to cause panic. I don't mean that. But I mean, people should be more aware and cognizant of what's happening. I mean, we have climate refugees in our own country. People who have, Paradise, California, that burned to the ground because of, we know it was because of I think it was wiring from PG&E or something like that. But
crumbling infrastructure.
Yeah, well, yes. Crumbling infrastructure.
Crumbling infrastructure plus climate change means death.
Plus climate change, exactly. And not managing our lands properly. I mean, Indigenous people here have been yelling about this forever. Take care of the land and it will take care of you. And there are ways to plant the soil. There are ways to irrigate. There are ways to manage the forest, controlled burning, and which enriches the soil, I might add. I mean, there are ways to take care of the land, and there are indigenous practices that, we have literally cordoned off the people who know how to do this, this work, and who know how to, be in balance with the land.
And by cordoning them off, we've also lost a lot of intergenerational knowledge.
Absolutely. Exactly. That's the point, is that they're all corralled somewhere else. And nobody's listening, and they're talking and saying and yelling and screaming and crying about it, and for good reason, because the earth and the land is just falling apart, and it's doing what it's not supposed to. Friday. I live in Baltimore, Maryland. Mid-Atlantic is 71 degrees in February, just this past Friday. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to complain. I'm trying not to complain. But also I was like, holy crap, this is not good. This is not normal. I'm from Minnesota, so I know cold weather. And we here in the Mid-Atlantic get Minnesota light weather. We get their weather, but we get a lesser version of it. I also left Minnesota, went to Florida for college, and lived there for years. This weather is closer to that weather than it is to Minnesota.
Yeah.
People really need to sit up and pay attention, and they need to understand not just about climate, just not about the land, not about the climate, but it is affecting people. And the people that it affects most are Black and brown people, who are the people who contribute to the problem least. People who live in coastal areas, people who live in lands bordering water, people who live in mountains, people who live in valleys, Black and brown people, and poor people. So across the world, it's that way.
Well, and redlining was like in Houston, I know for sure, redlining helped make sure that Black people were on all the lowest spots. So when the city flooded, it was just the Black neighborhoods that flooded.
Yeah. Yep, that's true.
That's messed up.
But it's always that way. I mean, the white neighborhoods are the neighborhoods that, that generally have better real estate. Literally, the land is better. It's in better positioning. And then they ensure that the trains go through, like, Black neighborhoods, the trains that carry caustic materials. Go through the Black neighborhoods, and the commuter trains might go through neighborhoods that may be populated by white people just because it looks nice. But even then, if it derails, they don't want it to hit a house where a white person lives. So, like, you see, there are places in Washington, D.C. where the metro does not go. Some of our trains here, like the public transportation, does not go to certain parts of Maryland. Like, you can't go to certain counties via public transportation because, like, clearly you all are not, brown people, Black people, poor people, you're not wanted here. It's still that way. I mean, we have what we call here the white L in Baltimore because it's where all the white people live. And not all. It's in an L, literally. It's like coming down, like, from Johns Hopkins University down and then around the Inner Harbor, the lower part of the Inner Harbor in, like, Federal Hill. And then they have what they call the Black Butterfly, are the two areas flanking the top part of that L, which is where all the Black and brown people and working class white people live. And it's still that way, still very much that way, much that way. And here we are, 2022, and it's still that way. Some of the covenants have been dissolved, and people can live where they want to live. But again, they make it so untenable. Why would you want to live there? Like, they just took our one little grocery store away. It wasn't even a Safeway or anything like that. It was a Save-A-Lot. And it was, but people could walk to it, and you could get your groceries, and you can walk back home. And now they've closed it. I live in a food desert. If you don't have a car, you can't get to Canton, which is down the way, that has 5 grocery stores in 1 square mile. 5 in 1 square mile.
Oh, wow.
But we don't have a grocery store, a functional full-service grocery store where I can get a birthday cake for my kid, or I can pick up a prescription, or I can get some fresh bread. We don't have anything like that in this neighborhood, which is really, it's on purpose. Again, violence.
Yeah.
This is violence, and people really need to be thoughtful about it. And folks don't, well-meaning people, don't think about it. And it's not, they're ignorant, and it's not their fault. They just truly don't know. But like, that's why we need to be talking about these issues really, really publicly through podcasts, through interviews, through education series. We need to be having these really public conversations about the human condition. It's not as rosy as people would have you believe. There are places in the United States where there still is not running water. Like, how are people living?
And places that don't have running water that also keep getting hit by hurricanes.
Right. Hello. Because you know where it is. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know where it is. Deep South. Exactly. Coastal areas. Coastal Mississippi. Coastal Alabama. Absolutely. Correct. But hey, that's the thing. Like, all that, my parents live in Florida. They live on the east coast of Florida, kind of south central. And I laugh because they're right between the Turnpike and 95, and I'm like, "Whew, y'all are going to have some beachfront property soon." They on purpose didn't live near the water, but I'm like, I was like, by the time we inherit, we're going to have some beachfront property. Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Yeah,
but it's all. I mean, Miami parts of Miami are regularly underwater. Parts of Palm Beach, not West Palm Beach, but Palm Beach are underwater regularly.
Let me guess. West Palm Beach is where the rich white people are?
No, West Palm Beach is not where the rich white people are. Palm Beach is where the white people are. They took all the coastal land. So
the rich people took the coastal land that's now flooding. So it's one of the few places where it feels a little more just.
A little just, yeah. There's a little justice in all of this. But like, also, yes and no. I mean, it still isn't land that belonged to them in the first place. Let's be clear.
Yeah.
And they're also eroding the barrier islands that help prevent hurricanes from hitting the mainland so hard. So like, all of the gentrification that's happening up the coast of Florida, the Georgia, the Carolinas, all the erosion that they're, the way that they're eroding the barrier islands, that's the break. That's what breaks hurricanes is the barrier. That's why they're called barrier islands, because the hurricane hits them first and then it slows it down. The more and more they keep cutting down trees and doing other things on the barrier islands, it's going to hurt the mainland. And like, they continue to I call it steal because it's what it is. Price people out of their own property. And taking the land of Gullah Geechee people up the Carolinas, up northern Florida, up through the Carolinas, so that they can build more resorts. It's criminal. It's criminal what has happened to people in these places where, again, they are being negatively affected by climate. They're also being having their own property, their ancestral property, the little bit that we have as Black people taken from them. It's absolutely criminal. It's criminal.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think we need a drink, Dustin.
I am. I have one.
Oh, bless you. I'm just doing water, but I'll get to it later. But that's the thing. Like, these conversations need to happen. This is why we need to have these conversations, because we can't fix something if we can't talk about it. We can't address the problem until we understand and examine the root of the problem, understand where we went wrong. And I mean, as a collective, we, as a human we, where things went wrong, and like how we can prevent it, correct it, and then prevent it from happening again. And to the conversation that that led to all of this was about reparations. We're not at the place where we're having an honest conversation. Here we are, we've got the Koch network, continually, stirring the pot on CRT. That's their doing. Like, that is solely the Koch brothers network doing that, causing this huge furor over critical race theories in public education, which you and I both know is not there. Like, what we need to have happen and continue to happen in public schools is like teach real history in an unbiased way. Tell the kids the truth and let them sit with that and let them dialogue about that. As kids, the kids are smarter than we are.
Yeah.
That's not fair.
Critical race theory should be affecting the people writing the history textbooks, but it's not shouldn't be in the history textbooks.
Right. Well, it really is. It's, the only place that you find CRT is in law schools or in African American studies graduate programs. It's not even a thing. Like, it really isn't a thing, but they're creating it a thing and acting like it's like, oh, let's make white kids feel guilty. That's not what it is. But like, let's have a real conversation about the actual fallout, the systemic issues that were caused because of these things and continue to be proliferated today. Like, let's have an honest conversation. Like, there are systemic ills that continue to befall Black people in particular, but like other non-white people, you know, in this country. And like, there's precedence for reparations. You know, rightfully so, Japanese Americans were compensated.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the slave owners were compensated. They lost property during emancipation.
Mm-hmm.
They got compensation. We were promised, we as a larger we, Black folks were promised 40 acres and a mule. Do you know what kind of wealth people could have generated with 40 acres of land and a mule had they gotten it? But guess what? We will never know, will we?
Yeah.
We'll never know. So, like, and I believe the U.S. government also rightfully manages some forms of reparations for Holocaust survivors, which is absolutely what should be happening. I think people operate from like a poverty mindset and like, oh, well, we can't do this, and you know, because if we do this, then that. And we are one of the most affluent countries in the world. We have more land, more resources than many other countries. We have it. We just choose to pour it into the military. And I'm not saying, like, we know that the military is an upward mobilization vehicle for working class people. You know, no one is saying that the military is a horrible institution for raising the living standards of people, but it's also predatory. Look at where the recruiters go. They go into inner city high schools, rural high schools where there are few jobs and few choices. Look who they're putting into infantry. It's poor kids, Black and brown kids, poor white kids. You know, here, you know, take this gun.
Oh man, even just the disproportionate representation of people living in the U.S. territories.
Right.
People from Puerto Rico and Guam and American Samoa in the military are not huge numbers, but disproportionate by a lot.
Right. If you're looking at their population of their country and the people going, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, it's like, we understand, and no one is saying, like, some of the biggest, greatest strides, racial strides in this country were made in the military first. But having said that, like, the purpose of the military is to kill. It is not, our current military is not here to protect. They're here to kill. And it's dangerous. They are besides the fossil fuel industry, the military is the U.S. military is the largest polluter in the world behind the fossil fuel industry. Nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about militarization, how the military and the U.S. government destabilizes other countries. And you wonder why all these people are knocking at our southern border. Who do you think destabilized those countries? Us. Like, we and again, not only are they political refugees, they are also climate refugees because, again, hurricanes, you know, soil erosion, you know, climate change is affecting crops. There's less to eat, less to sell. It's so multi-layered. But like the government, you know, the U.S. government and the military, hand in hand, are problematic. We need to be talking about this over-bloated military budget. And if we could carve half of that away, we can waive all student debt. All student debt, not some of it, all of it. All of federal student debt could go away. We would have enough money likely for Medicare for all, at least for a couple of years. And we would have money to start building better infrastructure. Just from the military budget alone.
That's because the empire is expensive to maintain.
It is, Dustin. You're correct. I mean, what was I thinking?
And they always are.
Right. But like, and I'm glad you used that word. That's exactly what it is. And people don't want to talk about imperialism, but the U.S. is an imperial machine. And yes, we there's a reason that, you know, brown countries don't want military bases in their country. It's from, you know, I realize it's for strategic positioning. I get that. But like, also, it's not our land. Why are we there? What are we serving? They're there as an imperial tool. It's empire building. I mean, we saw England do it and fail. And here we are at this place where...
Oh man, a couple of years ago, there was a leak from a well, not really a leak. It was one of those social fitness apps that somebody took a look at the data on it and was able to pinpoint U.S. Special Forces bases in like 180 countries.
Oh, wow, that's terrifying.
Basically every country.
Yeah. That's terrifying for a couple of reasons. Like, I on a personal level, like, I worry about people. Like, I don't want to see our citizens and our military, targeted. But also, like, we're everywhere, and you're absolutely right. We're everywhere. It's all exhausting, and it's all terrifying. But we need to be. This is why policy change is so needed. I'm glad you continue to raise the fact that yes, we still fight First Amendment, separation of church and state and First Amendment fights. But we're also talking about what else can we be addressing? Mm-hmm. What else should we be addressing? Who else should we be talking to? What other issues are of import that we should be, fighting for in the court system? We're literally having these conversations right now. We're getting ready to have a staff retreat in March. And some of this is what we're going to be discussing, like what else should our legal staff be working on? What else should they be looking at? Who else should they be thinking about? I think the carceral system is probably the next one, which is horrifying. The school to prison pipeline, that is a real thing. It's a cash bail system. The fact that there are so few diversion programs, and the fact that people are treated like animals in our prison system. And we expect them to come out and not reoffend, but we didn't create any supports for them.
And also won't give them jobs when they get out. So
right, exactly. It doesn't matter. Like the fact that, you can still ask whether someone, is a felon, has a record. Like if you've served your time, give the people back their rights. Let them be able to vote. Let them be able to integrate back into society. Let's build them a community. Let's help build them a community. And this is something that I think humanists should be doing because we have humanist chaplains who go into the prison systems and help to lead humanist groups in the prison system. But they come out, and I'm like, well, what are we doing as humanists to help undergird them? What are we doing to give them some supports and make it so that they have some breathing room to look around and see what they've missed and find a job and get their driver's license back? Their license is expired while they're in. How do we get them back onto normal footing so that they the opportunity to be around the wrong people doesn't necessarily arise, that they have choices, that people should be able to have. I look at the prison system in Scandinavian countries, Dustin, it looks like camp. It's nice. It's really nice, but they treat them like they get to eat decent food, decent, healthy food. And
they have to make their own food even.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you get to sleep in with comfortable bedding, and, you have a window you can see out of, and, but they also learn how to manage themselves and address the issue. What is the reason that this happened? And they have therapy, and they get to be educated. There was a time here where you could get in some places you still can, but you used to be able to get a degree while you were incarcerated. And now in some places you don't have any. You get no skills whatsoever. But they do that on purpose because, again, the prison industrial complex wants more and more customers. So, it matters that our federal government is and we will not partner with, private prisons anymore, because all they care about are the numbers. Yeah. They need to start looking at some of these judges who are, literally selling young people and Black and brown people into the prison system. There's no fairness being applied to people. And there needs to be, I'm not saying that the worst offenders, murderers, people who harm children and, who are domestic abusers, people who harm the elderly. There are people who there's a punishment for their action. There should be punishment for their action.
Yeah.
But we need to be more even-handed about what we're doing. The vast majority of people that are incarcerated are there for nonviolent offenses, drug
possession.
Who did they hurt?
Yeah.
Right. Who are they hurting? Let's let's crank up our money. Like, again, cut some money from police forces. And let's get some money for rehab, and let's send these people to rehab and like help them build a community so that they don't feel so sad that they need to turn to, substances.
I had a nephew who he started off with a DUI, and within 2 years, that one misdemeanor had turned into 8 and a felony and a heroin addiction and hepatitis C, and he died of an overdose.
I'm so sorry, Dustin. Oh my God.
While on probation.
So
like the whole probation system, like there should have, that's supposed to keep you from sinking deeper and deepr down, not not helping, not helping push you down.
That's the point. Is that they're where are the interventions? I mean, we're talking about we're talking about grown people, and like it's even the CPS system is even worse for children. Like the kids are falling through. Kids are missing, who are who have cases. And like they don't have enough caseworkers. We're overworking the people who are working. There are not enough people to check. Like it's a full system failure. They don't have. There's not enough capacity to monitor people who need the help, whether they are a child or they're an adult. There are not enough people to intervene and actually render aid where it's needed. The entire system needs the entire carceral system, the entire care system, the foster care system, the child protective services, all of it needs a full revamp. And I mean, which is why people use the word abolish instead of reform, because honestly, it all needs to go in the trash. And we just need to start from the ground up. It's not working. None of it is working. It's just not healthy. And I'm so sorry that happened to your nephew. I'm sorry that happened to your family, and it should never have happened. All, like you said, all of those touch points, someone failed him at every one of those touch points. And I have no doubt that you and your family, tried and tried and tried, but there's only so much you can do. And sometimes the best intervention is someone who's not related to you. We all know that if someone can tell you something outside your family that your parents have been telling you for years, and you hear it finally when, Joe the librarian says it to you, or, Susie the barista says it to you, you're like, oh, that's wisdom, even though your parents are like screaming in the background, we've been telling you this for 25 years. He may have heard it from someone. That's the point of them being there. He may have heard it from them when he wasn't listening to you all. But that's just tragic, and I'm so sorry. It's so unnecessary. The way that people, I guess, people really do judge who's worth having interventions, who's worth the effort. And drugs, again, what was he grappling with that any of that needed to happen in the first place? There's, there may have been a thing that just a simple counseling could have addressed early enough in the process. They don't want to, nobody wants to look at the root cause, and then they wonder why it goes off the rails. Just unreal.
Absolutely.
Oh gosh.
All right. Well, and that was 10 years ago. It's been a while.
Yeah, but it's still going on, and it's still affecting families today. It didn't stop with your family.
That story plays out every day for
multiple times.
A lot of families. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's absolutely tragic, but there's so much. The lack of care in our country right now is a huge problem, and I have to say that that's the way that I approach the work that we have to do here. At the AHA, here within the movement, it's really starting from a place of care and a place of understanding that our humanism has to be rooted in service. And I've said it and will keep saying it over and over again. If we are not serving, what are we doing? We're doing humanism wrong. If we are not serving, how can we stand in the gap for people? We are smart, good-hearted people who have strong moral compasses, who believe in personal integrity and truth. That's us. That's our people. This is the community we've had, and we've had for decades in humanism here at the AHA. We've fostered those communities, and now the world needs us to step back into that leadership place. I think, we were ahead of the curve on abortion in the 60s, before Planned Parenthood even was. We help to seed Narrow North America and other, abortion, and women's rights organizations. We were ahead of the curve at some point in time. And then at some point, I feel like the movement got stuck in like conversation, intellectual discourse. And I'm not saying that it's not important, that we shouldn't examine ourselves or examine social issues, but it's almost, not even almost, it is ineffective at this moment, because what we need is action. What we need is remedy, and we need to get moving again. We need to, like they say, rolling stones gather no moss. Well, we have moss on our movement, and it's time to get rolling. We've got to shake it off at this point, and we've got to get moving, and we've got to be in service to our communities. And, we've got almost 220 chapters and affiliates across the country. Tendrils in nearly every single corner of the country. Nearly, not every. We've got some geographic targeting we need to do. But for the most part, we've got really good people in the communities, and we've got people who want to do great work. What they need is better support from AHA, the office, us, our staff, and we're working on creating those supports and creating those resources for our chapters and our affiliates. But we also need coordination, and we need to get on the same page, and we need to all say the same thing and do the same thing, and then do it differently in every community, because all community needs are different. But we've got to go into an attitude of service and kindness. Like, we're nice people.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. Like, I love, like, as much as people are like, oh my gosh, the AHA, and I'm like, no. They're really nice people. These are really, really good folks. They're good-hearted people. They're smart. They're kind. And they really are loving people. I think they just don't know, like, how to move forward, because honestly, some of the things that the young people say and do can be perceived as confusing. Let's be honest about that. When I first started organizing with young people, I was like, what in the hell did this child do? I don't know. What did you say? What does that mean? And it took me a minute to figure out, like, the way that they communicate. I mean, their language is much more succinct, in my opinion, than the way that many of us communicate. And it took me years, like 2 years, to learn how to properly use and consistently use they, them pronouns. It took me a long time, but it was important. It's important not to misgender people. It's important to, like, identify them as they are, as they give themselves to you. And so I think there's a lot of confusion, and, like, I also have to create a safe space for some of our older members to ask their questions and not be ashamed to even ask, but not be shamed for asking. But, at the heart of it, they're good people. They're really, really good people, and they want the world to be better. They want humanism to thrive. They want to see the movement succeed. They want it to be vibrant and beautiful. They want to see all of all of their hard work flourish into the future. It's a lot of work. We've got a lot of work to do. But it takes a lot of investment, and it's going to take a lot of bravery on everyone's part. There's so much to do, but, like, my hope is that we can lead people in that, to address all of the things you and I have talked about today, to kind of start, how it is, like, I don't know if you've ever seen like a necklace when it gets tangled. Sometimes you got to roll it around in your hand and make it a little messy so that some piece of it will open up. Yeah. And then you can start to kind of, like, unravel and tease things out. And eventually you come out with this nice necklace that you can wear. But, it takes a while. And, like, we're at the part right now we're rolling things around in our hand. And then now, but I see an opening. And it's like, now we all have to start teasing these things out. And then we've got to start moving in the right direction. All of us have to start moving in the right direction. We don't always have to do the same thing. But we all do have to do the right thing, and we have to do it together,
Yeah. We're out of time. So people who want to help unravel the necklace, how can they get involved?
They can, right at this moment. I just advocate for people to get active in their own community, see where the needs are, and get active in their own community. But they can go to our website, AmericanHumanist.org, and they can join. We have a $1 digital membership. We have student memberships. Our regular membership is, I think, only $45 a year. It's pretty affordable. We do have a low-income adult membership. But join and see the news. See the issues that we're addressing. See some of the, the things that the policies we're fighting for and fighting against. See some of the legal battles that are happening. See the good work that our movement is trying to effect in the world. And join us. If there's not a chapter in your area, contact us and we can help you start one, or find one and join. But we've got a lot of work to do. So I want people to be really well aware that they're going to have to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty. But it's going to be fun if we do it together. So yeah, they can just go to our website and find a place to organize with us and join, get the news. And if, it still feels a little out of reach, they can just get active where they are and find a cause that is meaningful to them and leave the world better than they found it. That's what they can do.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dustin. I really appreciate you you inviting me here and being with you this afternoon. It was great talking with you.
All right. We don't have any new feedback. And that's okay. We definitely love getting it when we can, but well, I guess one bit of feedback we got was from Danielle about how that song sounds like all the 90s video games and stuff, and it sure does, and that's fun. What we also got is a new patron, Pierre. So thank you so much for your support, Pierre. And we also got patronage upgrades from Danielle, Paul, and Mark. So thank you all so much for updating your patronage to match the new per month, since it's no longer per episode. If you haven't done that yet, then please do when you get the chance, because if you don't, you'll be giving us a quarter as much money. And in a little bit of other news, these automation scripts that I made for the podcast, those have been posted to GitHub, and you'll be able to find a link to that on the website at humanisttakeontheworld.com or htotw.com with the GitHub icon up at the top. So Aaron, I know you were interested in getting those, so they're up there now. And I also upgraded the mixer to the Tascam Mixcast 4, and so far I am absolutely loving it. There was two things that were irritating with it so far. But one just required installing a Windows virtual machine to populate stuff onto the sound pad. And the other one was it puts all of the tracks, every single possible track, into a single WAV file. So then I got to make a script to split those out, and that was a lot of fun and is also up on the GitHub page. So feel free to check those out or completely ignore that if you don't care, which I'm sure applies to almost all of you. One other new feature that's available, there's a link at the bottom of the contact page to a PGP key. You can download that and import that to a contact for secure at htotw.com. And with that, you can send us encrypted email. So if you need to send us something and you need to keep it super, super secret, that is now available. Till next week, remember, not all those who wander are lost. You can find links and everything at htotw.com. You can use the contact form, the SpeakPipe button, or find our social media links, and now GitHub. And if you want to send us an email, contact at htotw.com.